All right, so ready to dive into a real mystery, a real head scratcher.
Absolutely. Always up for a good mystery.
This time we're taking a look at Woody Allen's Manhattan Murder Mystery.
Oh, classic.
It's one of those films that just keeps you guessing until the very end, right?
Okay.
But it's also got a lot of laughs along the way. We've got a ton of sources for this one, articles, reviews, the works. We're going to break it all down.
What always draws me to Allen's films, and this one is no exception, is that blend of suspense and humor. He walks that line so well.
He really does. It's like he takes those classic detective tropes, but, he gives them that Woody Allen twist.
Precisely. And Manhattan Murder Mystery is interesting because it also pays homage to classic film noir.
Oh, definitely. Like he took those old school detective stories and injected them with that
neurotic New York energy.
Exactly. And speaking of New York, this film is set in the heart of Manhattan. We're introduced to Larry and Carol Lipton, a couple who find themselves...
Oh, they stumble right into a mystery.
Right. It's way more exciting than their usual Broadway show, that's for sure.
Speaking of exciting, did you know this film has a pretty interesting backstory? It was actually co-written with Marshall Brickman.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, the same writing partner Allen collaborated with on Annie Hall.
Wow, that's fascinating. So he was toying with this murder mystery idea even back then.
Seems like it.
Now I'm even more curious to see how it all unfolds.
Me too.
And of course, we can't forget Diane Keaton. She is just fantastic as Carol Lipton.
Her comedic timing in this film is impeccable.
It really is. She's perfect for this role. And she actually earned a Golden Globe nomination for it, didn't she?
She did. Her performance was highly praised. But interestingly enough, she wasn't actually the first choice for the part.
Wait, really? Who else were they considering?
It was Mia Farrow who was initially supposed to play Carol.
Wow. Now that is interesting. I mean, it's hard to imagine anyone but Diane Keaton in that role, but still, that would have been fascinating to see. So what happened? Why the last-minute switch?
Well, there were some personal circumstances that led to Farrow's departure from the project.
Ah, okay. Well, it's hard to argue with the final result. Keaton just nails Carol's curiosity, her determination.
Absolutely. She embodies the role perfectly.
So let's jump into the thick of it. Where does this whole mystery begin?
Well, it all starts with the death of their neighbor, Lillian House.
Right, Lillian. Now, I remember you mentioning something about a suspicious urn.
Exactly. So Lillian's husband, Paul, he insists that she died of a heart attack, so she's already been buried.
Mm-hmm.
But then Carol, she drops by with some French pastries, and it's a friendly gesture.
Right.
And she stumbles upon this urn, a crematory urn, hidden away in a cupboard.
Whoa, that's a little strange, don't you think? I mean...
Definitely raises some eyebrows. It's not something you just, stumble upon every day.
Not at all.
And that's not the only thing that sets off Carol's, let's call them her spidey senses.
Oh, definitely not. Carol's senses are definitely tingling.
There's a strange phone call that Paul makes mentioning someone named Helen and a Hotel Waldron.
Okay, now that just screams mystery. Hotel Waldron, Helen. I was starting to get suspicious already. So what does Carol do? Knowing her, she doesn't just let it go.
Oh, absolutely not. This is Carol Lipton we're talking about. She's not one to ignore a good mystery, that's for sure.
Yeah, she's got a knack for finding trouble. Or maybe trouble finds her, who knows? So how does she start digging into all of this?
She starts piecing together clues, and she enlists the help of their friend, Ted, who happens to be a playwright.
Oh, Ted. He always gets roped into these things.
He does. But he's also just as drawn to this whole intrigue as Carol is. They team up to try and get to the bottom of it.
So it's like a real-life game of Clue with Carol and Ted as the amateur detectives.
Exactly. They're following every lead, every hunch. And their investigation, it leads them to an actress, Helen Moss.
Helen Moss. Wait, wasn't that the name Paul mentioned on that phone call?
You got it. And guess what? It turns out she's connected to Paul and Dee, the Hotel Waldron.
Oh, wow. This is really heating up. It's all starting to connect now.
Right. Just when they think they're onto something big, Carol sees something truly unbelievable.
What's that? Don't leave me hanging.
She spots Lillian, or at least someone who looks exactly like her, alive and well, riding a city bus.
What? Hold on. I thought Lillian was...
That's what everyone thinks. But there she is, plain as day.
So, is she a ghost? A twin? What's going on?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And of course, Carol, she can't just let this go, so what does she do?
Well, I bet she chases the bus down.
You know it. She's not going to miss this. She and Ted, they follow that bus, and where does it take them? Straight to the Hotel Waldron.
The plot thickens. The very same hotel that Paul mentioned on the phone. So what happens when they get there? Do they actually find Lillian?
They do. Or at least they find a Lillian.
This is getting more complicated by the minute.
This time she's found dead in one of the hotel rooms.
Okay, hold on. So first she's dead, then she's alive, and now she's dead again. This is getting ridiculous. Who is dying and coming back to life here?
It's enough to make your head spin. And just when you think it can't get any weirder, it does.
Oh no, tell me I'm wrong, but the body disappears, doesn't it?
You guessed it. The police arrive, and poof, no more body.
Now that's just straight out of a detective novel. Someone's playing tricks, that's for sure.
It's like they knew the police were coming and staged the whole thing.
Talk about a professional cleanup crew.
Yeah.
But I bet Carol and Ted don't just give up, do they? They're like dogs with a bone at this point.
They're hooked. They decide to stake out the hotel that night, hoping to catch Paul doing something suspicious.
Makes sense. So what do they see? What's Paul up to?
Picture this. It's the dead of night, and they spot Paul carrying a suspicious-looking bundle wrapped in a sheet.
A bundle, huh? What could be in the bundle?
He's sneaking down to the basement using the service elevator.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. What happens next?
Carol and Larry, they follow him, and they end up witnessing something truly chilling.
Don't tell me he didn't.
Paul disposes of the bundle in an industrial melting furnace.
A melting furnace? Oh my goodness, talk about covering your tracks. That's hardcore.
Right, like something straight out of a horror movie.
Let me get this straight. We've got a missing urn, a disappearing corpse, a mysterious hotel, and now a melting furnace. What is going on in this film?
You're catching up quickly. And this, my friend, is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
This is where a Manhattan murder mystery really starts to mess with your perception.
I bet. At this point, I wouldn't trust anyone. So what happens next? Where do they even begin to unravel this tangled web?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting.
Oh, no. I don't know if I can handle more twists and turns.
You'll have to wait till next time to find out. It only gets more twisty, I'll tell you that.
Oh, man. All right. So last time, we left off with Larry and Carol, our amateur detective duo, witnessing something truly shocking.
Sure.
I mean, we've got a missing urn, a disappearing body, a mysterious hotel, and to top it all off, a melting furnace.
Right. It's like something straight out of a Hitchcock film.
It really is. But where do we go from there? How do they even begin to untangle this whole mess?
Well, this is where a new character enters the picture. Marcia Fox.
Ah, Marcia. Right, she was.
Larry sets her up on a date with Ted. Remember Ted?
Of course. Carol and Larry's playwright friend, who also got roped into this whole thing.
Exactly. But Marcia, she's not just any date. She's a novelist. And as soon as she hears about this whole dead woman on a bus situation...
Which, let's be honest, is quite a situation.
To say the least, she's immediately intrigued. I mean, this is right up her alley. She's used to crafting narratives, piecing together plots.
Like handing a detective a real-life mystery to solve.
Exactly. And she starts to see the outlines of, well, a cleverly disguised murder.
Okay, so what's her theory? How does she think this whole thing went down?
So Marcia, she proposes this idea. What if the woman who died wasn't actually Lillian, but her wealthy sister, who just happened to look a lot like her?
Oh, a switcheroo. I see where you're going with this.
Lillian could have been impersonating her sister all along, you see, hiding out at that shady Hotel Waldron, while Paul, her husband, drained the sister's bank accounts.
Now that's cold. But what about that trip to Paris they were planning with Helen Moss? Where does that fit in?
Well, that was their escape plan, of course. Once they had secured the funds, they could disappear to Europe, start new lives.
Clever. But also quite devious.
Oh, absolutely. But there's a twist, you see. According to Marcia's theory, Paul double-crossed Lillian, killing her to keep all the money for himself.
Wow. Talk about ruthless. He really thought he could pull one over on everyone.
He did. So it seems like they're finally getting somewhere with this whole investigation.
They've got a theory, a motive, but...
But they have one big problem. They have no proof.
It's their word against Paul's. And we already know the police aren't exactly buying their story.
Exactly. So what do? Let a potential murderer go free, or
take matters into their own hands.
You got it. Remember that book Marcia mentioned, Murder in Manhattan?
Oh, yeah, the one Larry recommended to her but conveniently forgot to mention to Carol.
Well, that book details a similar case where the killer was finally caught through a clever bluff.
A bluff. I like where this is going.
The idea is to convince Paul that they have undeniable evidence against him.
Something he would pay anything to get rid of.
Precisely.
Oh, this is brilliant. They're going to set a trap for him.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah.
But how do they pull it off?
Well, this is where Ted's playwright skills come in handy.
I should have known. He always has a knack for the theatrical.
They enlist the help of Helen Moss, who also happens to be an aspiring actress, and Ted writes this whole script.
Wait, so they're going to make Paul think Helen knows something she doesn't.
They record Helen delivering seemingly innocent lines, and then they splice those recordings together to create a fake phone call where Helen claims she's seen Lillian's body and that someone's demanding a ransom.
Wow. Talk about a high-stakes play. It's a long shot, but I have to admit it's pretty clever. So does it work? Does Paul buy it?
Well, not exactly. Paul, you see, he's no fool. He's already wary of Carol and her little team of amateur detectives.
Oh, I bet. She's been a thorn in his side since day one. So what does he do?
He does something completely unexpected. He kidnaps Carol.
Oh my God. Things just went from 0 to 100 real quick.
It's a full-blown hostage situation now.
And where's Larry in all of this? Is he at home, completely oblivious to his wife's abduction?
Not Larry. He springs into action, in his own neurotic way, of course. Armed with nothing but a table lamp as his weapon of choice, he rushes to Paul's rundown movie theater.
Of all the places to hold someone hostage, a rundown movie theater.
That's where Carol's being held captive.
Oh, this poor guy. I can only imagine what's going through his head right now. Talk about a nightmare. So what happens when he gets there? Does he confront Paul?
What follows is pure cinematic gold. It's this hilarious, suspenseful homage to film noir, specifically Orson Welles' The Lady from Shanghai.
I've heard that film is wild.
Imagine a chaotic shootout in a hall of mirrors, bullets flying, reflections everywhere.
Talk about a recipe for disaster.
It's both terrifying and hilarious at the same time.
Oh, I bet. It's like being trapped in a funhouse gone wrong.
And that ties into one of the film's central themes. Nothing is as it seems.
Right. Just when you think you've got it all figured out, another twist comes along and throws you for a loop. So does Larry, armed with only a lamp, manage to save the day? Or does Paul get away with everything?
Just when it seems like Paul might actually escape, there's one final jaw-dropping twist.
Don't tell me. Gladys shows up.
You got it. Paul's seemingly mousy assistant, Gladys Dalton, steps into the frame, and let me tell you, she reveals a hidden motive. Remember how she expressed her, shall we say, displeasure at Paul's interest in Helen Moss?
Oh, yeah. She was definitely not happy about that whole situation.
Yeah.
But I never would have guessed.
It turns out Gladys has been harboring a long-standing, unrequited love for Paul.
Oh, wow. Talk about a plot twist. So what does she do? Does she help Paul escape?
In a dramatic climax, Gladys shoots Paul, declaring that she's tired of being overlooked and used. It's this moment of both triumph and tragedy, you know? It reminds us that even in this comedic world, actions have very real consequences.
That's so true. So justice prevails, but not in the way anyone could have predicted. Paul's web of deceit finally unravels, and I'm assuming Carol is reunited with a very relieved and probably slightly traumatized there.
Exactly. And to top it all off, the film ends with not one, but two couples enjoying celebratory dinners. Ted and Marcia, officially an item, and of course Carol and Larry, perhaps with a newfound appreciation for each other after their brush with danger.
It's almost like life is imitating art, wouldn't you say? With its own share of unexpected twists and turns, romantic subplots, the whole 9 yards. But after all the chaos, the mistaken identities, the near-death experiences, what's the takeaway? What is Woody Allen trying to tell us with Manhattan Murder Mystery? It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. About the lengths we'd go to uncover the truth.
Exactly. Like, if Carol hadn't dug deeper, who knows what would happen?
Wait, that's the thing about curiosity, isn't it? It can be a powerful motivator, but it also makes you wonder, where do we draw the line between, healthy curiosity and, well, becoming obsessed?
Right. I mean, there were times when I was watching the film thinking, okay, Carol, maybe you should leave this one to the professionals. But then again...
Where's the fun in that?
Exactly. And let's be honest, if Carol hadn't gotten involved, would the truth have even come out?
That's a good question. It does make you wonder if sometimes those traditional methods, they just aren't enough.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
One thing I've been thinking about, Larry. He claims to be terrified of confined spaces.
Right.
And yet there he is, stuck in an elevator with a dead body.
Talk about irony.
And then He manages to dodge bullets in that hilarious shootout scene at the theater.
It's like the more absurd the situation, the braver he becomes.
Right. It's almost like his fear just disappears when things get really crazy.
I think it speaks to that idea that everyone has hidden depths, even those who seem content with a simple, predictable life.
Totally. And let's not forget, this is a Woody Allen film, which means...
Brilliant dialogue.
Exactly. Those classic Woody Allen one-liners, they just make the whole thing so enjoyable. Like that line Larry has. He says, "I don't need a murder to enliven my life."
Classic Larry.
It's so true, though. It perfectly captures his character, his longing for a simple life, which, of course, gets totally upended by this whole murder mystery fiasco.
It's that unique blend of humor and suspense that makes Allen's films so rewatchable. You pick up on new things each time you see them.
They really do stay with you. So after all those twists and turns, those close calls, we're left with that final image of Larry and Carol, safe in bed after their wild night.
Exhausted, but relieved.
Exactly. But I bet they're also thinking, did all that really just happen?
Right. It's this return to normalcy, but you know that they've been changed by everything they experience.
For sure. And then the film ends with that lingering question, that challenge almost, the one that asks, if you were in Carol's shoes, just how far would your curiosity take you?
It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? About the choices we make, the risks we're willing to take.
It's like Woody Allen is saying, okay, now it's your turn to solve the mystery.
I like that. It's not just about the murder mystery itself, but about our own reactions to it, Those gray areas of human nature, the decisions we make when faced with the unexpected.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that sometimes the most fascinating mysteries, they aren't the ones that get solved.
But the ones that stay with us long after the credits have rolled.
Perfectly said. And there you have it, folks. Our deep dive into Woody Allen's Manhattan Murder Mystery. A film that's both hilarious and thought-provoking. A reminder that sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction.
And that a little curiosity can go a long way.
That it can. Until next time, stay curious, everyone.